Hey everyone, I'm Troy, and today I want to talk about Oblivion Remastered. Wow, never thought I would be saying that. That is crazy. I feel old. Yeah, I feel very old. Yeah, this was leaked quite a long time ago when some documents were leaked with the Bethesda Microsoft buyout. I never wanted to believe it until I saw it. I wanted to keep my expectations low, and it is here, and it is so dope, man. I'm loving it. If you don't know, I'm a huge Bethesda fan. I considered Skyrim my favorite game for the longest time. You know, I was a lot younger at that time, but Skyrim is kind of the game that really solidified my love for a single player RPG or a single player experience. Not only did I grow up on playing Skyrim, you know, I played Oblivion way back in the day, Fallout 3, New Vegas. I even made a Bethesda game tier list. You know, I would recommend checking that out. I think it's pretty good. So when I heard rumors of a Oblivion remake and then it shadow dropped on April 23rd, oh, I was hyped. You know, the OG Oblivion, it's a very influential game for not only me personally, but the industry as a whole. Oblivion really helped introduce me to RPGs when I was a very young wee lad, but it also felt like it kind of brought RPGs into a more mainstream audience. It's also a little bit infamous for being the first game to have DLC, downloadable content, in the horse armor. Yeah, the infamous horse armor. It was like $6 and you bought armor for your horse. It was kind of ridiculous, but you know, look where we are now. Thanks, Bethesda. Regardless though, 2006, Oblivion, it was a monumental game. It was fantastic. It was very influential. And Oblivion Remastered here, I'm happy to say, it's also amazing. And as a remaster, I would say it's nearly perfect. It's almost just the perfect remaster because it brings the game into a fresh new light while not tarnishing what made Oblivion great. So it walks that line perfectly. It's basically the most you can do with a remaster, nearly, without considering it a remake. But it's not all perfect. I'd said nearly perfect. It's still janky, it's still buggy, but it's still a ton of fun. It updates what it needs to update, the visuals, and it also tweaks a few big pain points that really stopped me now from going back and enjoying Oblivion. So let's go and dive into all this. This is going to be a fairly short review because it's just a remaster of an old video game. This is not a new game. But I do want to talk about it. I do want to put a video out on it because I just love it. I love Oblivion. I love these older Bethesda games. And I'm just having a ton of fun going back and playing Oblivion right now. It's fantastic. So yeah, so let's go ahead and dive in. But before we do, I want to remind you, if you haven't already, please subscribe and give this video a like. If you like Bethesda, if you like Oblivion, if you like my content, I don't know. Just, yeah, sub and like. I like video games. I'm always so bad at these. All right, but let's go ahead and start off. So I'm going to kind of structure this into two parts. I'm basically going to go over all the new stuff that the remaster introduces, but then I'll kind of go and briefly talk about the old stuff, about what makes Oblivion so great and why it's still here and why I'm still having a lot of fun. Starting off with the technical state of Oblivion Remastered. Honestly, this is a bit of a letdown, I'm not gonna lie, because it's kind of still very buggy, which for a remaster, you would expect it to be polished to all hell, right? That's kind of what they do with a remaster. They need to make sure it's the perfect version of this old game. So you think they would fix all the bugs and all the jankiness. But here they did not. It's still very buggy, which on one side does kind of hold on to some of that Oblivion charm. Very weird to say, but I do think they could have done a little bit more here. I experienced a lot of performance issues, you know, frame rate dips, stuttering. Sometimes my game would just drop to like 20 frames a second randomly, and I wasn't really sure why. That kind of stuff is disappointing. Now, it's not game breaking by any means, you know, it's not unplayable or anything. It's kind of your classic Bethesda launch. It's just as buggy as it was when it released in 2006. It's just as buggy as Skyrim when it released in 2011. It sucks to say this, but as a Bethesda fan, kind of used to it. I don't let it bring me down too much. I also want to mention too, it's said it's verified on Steam Deck and it runs like dog shit on the Steam Deck. That should not be verified. My cloud saves just straight up do not work between my Steam Deck and my PC. So trying to play it on Steam Deck, I wouldn't really recommend it. It definitely runs and you can do it, but you can tell the Steam Deck is really struggling to play this thing. Outside of the performance, you know, the presentation, it looks gorgeous. And obviously this is the biggest change in the remaster. How it works is the core of Oblivion still runs on the same engine, that the creation engine that Bethesda still uses to this day. So the bones feel the same, but the presentation, the skin of Oblivion Remastered is all rendered in Unreal Engine 5. So it looks fantastic, specifically the lighting. Oh my God, some of the lighting in this game, it looks so good. There's multiple times where I stopped and I looked at a vista, or even just looked at like a little mushroom in the Shivering Isles and how the light sort of beams off the bottom, and especially during the nighttime. Mwah. Beautiful. Well done. The OG Oblivion was notorious for having extremely ugly character models, and they've had a lot of work here, and it really pays off. They still kind of have that awkward charm, so the NPCs still do have a bit of that uncanny valley feeling, which fits for Oblivion because the NPCs are so wacky and weird. And they did a good amount here to freshen up some of the animations too. Essentially, the character models and the animations, they look fresh while still capturing and holding on to that Oblivion awkwardness. It's great. I will say some of the outdoor areas, you know, the forests and the landscapes, the mountains, still feel a bit bland. I think they could have done a little bit more to update these, maybe added some more foliage or some more interesting topography. I do wish they did a little bit more there, but I feel like I'm being a little bit too nitpicky now. This is still an old game from 2006. So all in all though, presentation, it looks great. And that's kind of the main draw in Oblivion Remastered here, right? You get to experience this old game in a completely new light and a new, very fresh set of paint. A few other things they've tweaked. One big one was the progression. The progression in the OG Oblivion was terrible, and I hated it. I did recently play Oblivion for my tier list, and the progression was sort of the biggest thing that was holding me back from enjoying it now. Back in the day, I didn't really care. I think I played on like the lowest difficulty, so it didn't really matter. But the OG Oblivion had very counterintuitive progression when it came to leveling up your character. Now, rather than sort of rolling the dice and hoping your attributes get +5 if you level up the correct skills, now you just get to straight up pick which attributes you want to increase. So it makes leveling feel a lot more intuitive and less like you have to plan out this very specific build. You can just sort of organically play the game and you'll naturally level up your skills and attributes accordingly. One thing though with progression they didn't fix that I wish they did was the level scaling. It was bad in Oblivion and it's still kind of bad here. It feels not quite as bad because you can level up your character better, but you're still running into bandits with, you know, glass armor and elven maces, you know, by the time you hit level 15, and it's just kind of ridiculous. Enemies will still feel very, very spongy, but again, this is remedied a bit by the better character leveling. I also want to mention that I really hope they do something about the difficulty levels in Remastered. In OG Oblivion, it was a slider, so it was very modular. You could set exactly how difficult you want things to be. Here, it's in levels, similar to Skyrim. And for some reason, there's a huge jump from Adept, which is the medium level, to Expert, which is the second hardest level. I looked at the numbers online. It goes from, you know, a 1-to-1 scale. You know, you do 1 times damage, the enemy does 1 times damage, to Expert being a 6 to 1/6 scale. So you're going to do 1/6 the damage while your enemies do 6 times the damage. And that is just way too big of a jump. I did install a mod that sort of smooths this out a lot more. So if you can, you're playing on PC, I would highly recommend modding the difficulty. And another big thing they added here was more voice lines and voice actors. If you know anything about the OG Oblivion, there was like, felt like maybe 6 voice actors in the entire game. You'd be constantly running into characters with the same voice. And with Oblivion Remastered, they've added a good amount of new ones, you know. This is almost like a change that you can't really tell is happening because you never notice it, which is a good thing. And there's a thing from like the OG Oblivion where you'd see 2 characters talking to each other that sound exactly the same. I never ran into that here. And really, that's all they've done here in Remastered. You know, they freshened up the visuals. Obviously, that's the big one. They made progression and character leveling way better and more intuitive. And then they added a bunch of new voice lines. That's all you really needed to do to make Oblivion Remastered feel fresh and fantastic. They did also add 2 new quests with the like deluxe version that sort of give you some dope armor, but they're pretty small and kind of just string you out around the map. They're nothing crazy, but it is a nice touch. All right, so now let's go and talk about what I think made Oblivion so great in the first place. Why do I love Oblivion and why do I love the Remastered and why would I recommend it? If you are either a Bethesda fan, maybe you've only played Skyrim, or maybe you love Oblivion and you're for for some reason hesitant to play the remaster, which I doubt anyone is at this. You know this game's good if you've played the original Oblivion. So yeah, what makes Oblivion so great? And I think at this point, Oblivion Remastered, this is the best Elder Scrolls game. If you watch my tier list, I ranked Morrowind, Oblivion, and Skyrim all in A tier, almost S tier. They were all very, very close to being perfect for me, but they just had a few things that held them back. And for me, in Oblivion, it was the kind of janky visuals and the character progression. I thought it was just horrendous. But with that fixed, Oblivion Remastered is easily the best Elder Scrolls game. You know, for one, it has the best quests. Oblivion has the best faction quest lines and some of the best side quests in any Elder Scrolls game and probably in any Bethesda game. The faction quest lines here really feel like you're rising through the ranks. You know, you start off in the Thieves Guild doing small time thefts, just stealing from people's homes, just sort of trying to make a name for yourself. And you slowly rise your ranks up to, you know, the Gray Fox, to becoming the leader of the guild. Sorry, spoiler alert, fucking 19-year-old game. Contrast this with like Skyrim, where you were immediately the most important member of the guild. That is not here in Oblivion. It's a little bit more of a slow burn, but it just feels so much better. It really feels more like that medieval life sim that I think Elder Scrolls is sort of shooting for. Another reason why I think Oblivion's so great is the theme of Oblivion. It's your classic sort of high fantasy, right? With some dark fantasy in there. I mean, like the Oblivion realm and the Daedra, sort of more dark fantasy. But Oblivion, it feels like pure high fantasy versus like Skyrim or Morrowind. Morrowind's definitely more dark fantasy. Skyrim's, I don't know how to describe it. It's just sort of Skyrim, you know, it's all cold and Viking-ish. You got your ancient elven ruins. You got your trolls, your unicorns, your ogres, your minotaurs. Also, the magic system in Oblivion is the best out of any of the Elder Scrolls game. Actually, yeah, I think Morrowind had a pretty good magic system too. I know the Oblivion magic system is definitely way better than Skyrim. You can make your own custom spells here in Oblivion. Of course, you can't talk about the Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion without talking about the NPCs, right? There's a big focus here on like the NPC schedules and how they interact. And I think at the time they called it the Radiant AI. But that's sort of it, right? The NPCs in Oblivion, they're just sort of, they get in all sorts of crazy, wacky situations. Just the lines that they say to you, they all act super rude to you if they don't like you for absolutely no reason. It's just, I just laugh way more in Oblivion than playing any other Bethesda game. And a large part of that is because of the NPC interactions. And of course, you can't talk about Oblivion without talking about the Shivering Isles, which is arguably Bethesda's best expansion. And in here, in Oblivion Remastered, it's as better and beautiful as ever. And having all of that included in Oblivion Remastered, of course, I would expect that, but it's part of what makes Oblivion great. Sheogorath is as interesting and wacky as ever. The Shivering Isles really takes the dorkiness and the wackiness of the normal NPC Oblivions and just turns it up a notch and really leans into it. And I think that's what truly makes the Shivering Isles so great. Bethesda knew what made Oblivion so good, and they turned it up to 10. But yeah, you know, I'm not going to sit here and ramble why a 19-year-old game is so great. I'm going to keep this video pretty short. I just really want to get my thoughts out there and let you guys know that, dude, Oblivion Remastered, it kicks ass. It is the best, the ultimate Elder Scrolls experience now. Yes, I do think Oblivion Remastered is better than Skyrim. And if I were to put it on my tier list, I would rank it in S tier. It just does exactly what a great remaster needs to do. It takes an already beloved game, puts a fresh new coat of paint all over it, and by fresh, I mean fresh. Like, it looks good. And it does this all without impeding on what made the original game so special. So because of that, and I know I'm sort of ranking a 19-year-old game here, but I want to do it because I like giving numbers a thing. It makes my brain happy. I'm giving the Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion Remastered a 9.5 out of 10. It is nearly a perfect remaster. If they would have just buttoned it up a little bit more and fixed maybe like the enemy scaling a bit, smoothed out the difficulty, I think I would have given it a 10 out of 10. There are just a few things that I wish they would have touched on. But regardless, this is still an excellent remaster. You know, this is the Oblivion that you love, or perhaps hate. If you hate it, you know, obviously you're not gonna like this. But it's all done from a brand new perspective. And if you loved Oblivion, or if you love Skyrim, or any Bethesda game for that matter, Oblivion Remastered, I think, is a must play. Like I said, this is now the definitive Elder Scrolls game, and now one of my favorite Bethesda games, and easily one of my favorite games of all time. But yeah, that's really it. I know it's short and sweet. I'm not going to dive too heavy into Oblivion here. I love it. And if you love Oblivion, you gotta play it. And if you like Bethesda games, you gotta play it. So anyways, thanks so much for watching, and don't forget to subscribe, give this video a like. I also stream here on YouTube about 2 to 3 times a week, so I'll definitely be streaming a lot of Oblivion Remastered here in the coming weeks, coming months, coming years. Anyways, thanks for watching, and yeah, I'll see you later. Bye-bye.